Okay, so we're live. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, good night, whatever time zone you're in. This is the Technology for Good show. My name is Tom Raftery, and with me we have my co-host. You want to introduce yourself, Chris?
Yeah, Chris Kernahan, SAP mentor, principal consultant at Bluefin Solutions. So, yeah, I'm a regular co-host with Tom, and my day job involves me playing with SAP technology, and my hobbies just involve me playing with technology in general. So, yeah, thanks for having me back, Tom.
Not at all. And myself, I'm Tom Raftery. I work with Redmonk. We're an analyst firm. I look into energy and clean tech. So that's where I work out of and what I work on. And the format of the show is, as always, the same kind of thing every week. This is episode 85.
Yeah.
What we typically do is we talk about a couple of climate things first to kind of set the scene. And then we go from there into energy and clean tech and how we are going to solve all the problems that we've created for ourselves. So
we're not going to have any alcohol while we're doing it. Normally, when we set the world the world to rights, in person at least, we usually have a small snifter between us.
We drown. Sounds like a good plan, but yeah, no. All I have here is a glass of water for my sins. So
I know I haven't even got a cup of tea. I might have to message Mrs. K to see if I can wangle a cup of tea.
Okay, we'll hit into the stories. So to start us off on this Friday afternoon, and the first two climate-related stories I saw were these ones. The sea level rise from ocean warming is underestimated, according to scientists.
Yes.
I mean, basically, there's nothing there beyond the headline that we need to talk about. The sea level rises are increasing more than had previously been thought. And the second headline, winters are getting warmer. I mean, that's, again, pretty self-explanatory. What it is that since 1970, since 1970, you can see the trend, and this is US based, but it's pretty global in effect. Since 1970, you can see the trend of warming for winters. That's overnight temperatures for winters since 1970, and it's been going. The temperatures have been going up 1.2 degrees since 1970 per decade. Yeah. So when you think there's 4.5 decades in that data, that's pretty impressive numbers.
Yeah.
So.
And the other thing that's impressive about it, and if you see where the sea or the temperature rise is largest, it's around the Great Lakes. And the interesting thing is that you've got the continental heat effect, and then you have the coastal effect. And to see that level of temperature change around large bodies of water, is pretty impressive. Impressive in a bad way, obviously, but
it's in southern Texas there as well.
Yeah, but Texas is an outlier. We like most people in America, we should forget about Texas. Sorry to all people who live in Texas.
True enough. And the next story, and we'll start heading into better news now. And the first couple of stories we'll have in the better news section are kind of energy related stories.
Yes.
And the first one I saw there that I thought was interesting was this one. And excuse me, a bit of a cold. So this comes out of a study from New Scientist, if I remember correctly, and or no, Scientific American it is.
Scientific American.
Yeah. Sorry, Scientific American. And it talks about how wind and sunshine could power most of the US by 2030 without raising electricity prices.
Yeah.
And that's according to a study from the NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration of the US, plus the University of Colorado in Boulder.
Yes.
And they do the study, and they have the link to it there. The link is right down here in paragraph 3. And basically, it's a link to the publication in the Nature Climate Change Journal. And it talks, about factoring in things like energy demand costs and, crucially, the role of weather. They basically say that, look, nobody looked at the importance of weather and wind for solar energy, and they've done that. They've factored it in. Yeah. And according to their study, the switch to clean energy, as the title says, can be fast and cheap. It can be done, and it won't raise the cost of electricity.
Yeah.
It's not something that you hear a lot of people say.
No, but we are seeing more and more of it. And, over the last number of weeks, and certainly over the last year, we have had reports from people like Deloitte, Gartner. These people are actually looking at the economics of the arguments and saying, actually, this does stack up. But the bit that we're missing is, this fast and cheap. None of those previous reports really did very well with the transition from a fossil fuel-based energy economy to a clean energy-based economy.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's true. And the flip side of it then is this next story which I came across, which which says that the revenue from solar PV installations is expected to reach $1.2 trillion.
Wow.
That's between 2015 and 2024. So in 10 years, expected to reach $1.2 trillion. And this is according to figures published in a new company report, Distributed Solar PV from Navigant Research. Yeah. So, again, this is not an industry player. This is Navigant Research are an industry analyst firm like Redmonk, and they've come up with these numbers. So this is not a vendor coming up with the data. It's an analyst firm, an external analyst firm who've come up with it. They don't stand to gain anything from it.
No, exactly.
So that's a crap load of money, and
that really is.
The cool thing about that, I mean, all the news around renewables and solar this week is tremendously positive, because when you see things like this, the cost of solar is predicted to fall 10% a year, and in fact, not only is it predicted to fall, it has fallen 10% every year on year since 1980, according to this data.
Yeah.
And this is data out of the UK, and it's out of Oxford University Research. And they put in a forecasting model and they've published it in Research Policy. And basically they say that since the 1980s, the cost of panels has come down 10% a year on year, and it is predicted to continue to do so for the next 12 years at least.
Jesus.
That's impressive. If you do, I mean, I did this exercise in the calculator the other night, and if you assume that solar panels cost, just pick an arbitrary number, 9 cents per kilowatt hour, and that will vary. It'll be less in hotter climes, but let's pick a figure of 9 cents per kilowatt hour. If you drop that 10%, it goes to obviously 8.1.
Yes.
But if you drop it another 10% and do that exercise 10 times, so push out 10 years, you're down to 3 cents per kilowatt hour in 10 years' time. That's 10% a year on year for 10 years. You drop it from 9 cents to 3 cents.
That is stunning.
That
is absolutely stunning.
And it has fallen 10% year on year since 1980. So, and we're seeing, because it has now reached a tipping point where you're seeing the sales of it go like that, I'd say 10% a year on year for the next 10 years is possibly
conservative,
because we'll get economies of scale which weren't possible before with these small numbers that were being sold up to now. So I think, by the mid 2020s, we're looking at solar at 2 to 3 cents per kilowatt hour in even the coolest geos.
Yeah, and
that beats anything else by a large margin, and that will allow storage, which the cost of storage are also going down. That'll allow solar plus storage to penetrate most areas.
It will do. Look, it's. I was stunned by just the idea that decreasing by 10% every year for the next 10 years. Being able to actually to model that or state that projection is astounding. So it is, and it's one of those things where you sit and you think, is it hyperbole? Are they actually going to be able to do it? But when you actually, as you say, when you look back at what the history's been, they have been doing that, which is phenomenal in its own right.
Yeah, this is it. Excuse me. It's really impressive, and it speaks to a very optimistic outlook, I think. And as I say, I think the 10% is possibly even conservative.
Yeah. Well, like there's nothing wrong with having a positive outlook on life, especially whenever it comes to this stuff. Because at the end of the day, there's so many people who are willing to knock it and say, and put it down. You think, well, that that's not really solving the problem. That's just being negative.
Mm. Yeah, and speaking of being positive,
yes,
we see this report by 2030, renewables will be the world's primary power source, and that's from a report by the International Energy Agency.
Yes,
they've predicted that driven by continued policy support, renewables will account for half of additional global generation, overtaking coal around 2030 to become the largest power source.
Yeah.
This is a long piece, but it's well worth diving into. What's fascinating about this is that this report comes from the International Energy Agency.
Yeah.
And the International Energy Agency has proven itself time and time again to be extremely conservative in its projections around renewables. Typically it favors the fossil fuel, and that's because of where it comes from.
Exactly.
It's populated by fossil fuel organizations. So
well, it's a global organization. It's a global organization. It's like it's like the IPCC reports. It's like the World Health Organization reports. They are all mired within compromise in terms of language and things like that. So as you say, a number of the countries, a number of the organizations that are part of the International Energy Agency, have such diverse interests. You really are looking at the very median or mode of any sort of language.
Yeah.
They are. So it is intensely conservative.
Intensely, yeah, absolutely. And like I say, they've been more a friend, and they've time and time again they've underestimated where renewables are going to.
Yeah.
And if they're saying that renewables will be the primary power source by 2030, you can take it for granted that they will be by 2030, no problem, if not by 2025.
Yeah.
It's but it's fascinating that even they're saying it. So it's when you hear it coming from them, it's got to be true. Yeah.
Well, it's there's things there are things that you can see within the wider picture within the world, and it's whenever we've had this historical Paris Accord, and then we've had Davos and things like that there, and you can see these reports starting to reference those events and the agreements of those events and things like that there, and you see this critical mass. You can see it, you can see it in terms of actually installations on the ground, but also this critical mass in terms of thought and leadership and the desire to do it. That's just becoming so much clearer.
Yeah, it's impressive. It really is. The shift is fantastic to see. It's been a long time coming, but it's great to see it finally happening. And then I saw this story, excuse me, coming out of Clean Technica, talking about how China is overtaking Germany to become the world's leading solar PV country. And basically, China and Germany has been, because Germany had good subsidies for photovoltaic for a long time.
Yeah,
they were doing net metering and they were paying people to generate.
Yes.
But now, because China has set itself some really impressive aims around renewables, and China is an interesting country because China, when it does set itself these aims, it generally sets an aim at one level and comes in and delivers at a level above the initial aim. Unlike most countries which struggle to meet their targets, China generally, I don't want to say under promises and over delivers. What they tend to do is over promise and over deliver. They'll say we'll roll out 50 gigawatts of solar, and they'll roll out 55. And they've done this consistently. since they started setting targets for wind and solar. They've generally set ambitious targets and beaten them every single time.
But the thing about it is, it's an autocratic.
It's essentially
not a democratic regime, and that gives them the ability to do that, to actually to go from a top-down level, push the desire down, and then have it execute and explode and mushroom, and do what needs to happen. And whilst there are many things about China that drive me nuts, and I don't agree with it, but at the same time, the ability to autocratically say, right, this is the direction, what we're doing, damn it, we're going to do it. And when they've done it well, and for things like this, it's phenomenal what can be achieved. And in many ways, it leads the world because it shows that it can be done, whether it's an autocratic method or whatever, but it just shows that it can be done. And then
it is leading the world right now in renewables. I mean, they're rolling out more renewables now than any other country in the world.
Yeah.
And India is going to struggle to try and catch up. And we will see those two countries, China and India, become superpowers in terms of renewables in a very short time, between now and 2020.
Yeah. The Middle East countries may actually do pretty well in terms of energy density because because of the amount of sunlight they actually get for photovoltaics and things like that there. But you're right, it will flatten the energy market globally.
Yep.
So well, as opposed to concentrating it. There was a really good infographic during the week about where the impression of certain populations about where their energy actually comes from, and the originating graph was, where do most Americans believe their oil actually comes from? And most people think it comes predominantly from the Middle East, and it's actually they had something like 60% in terms of people's opinions of where it came from. It actually is only about 40% coming from the Middle East. So there's quite a lot come from the States, from the American continent itself, and things like that there. But it was a fascinating infographic in its own right. So I don't know.
Yeah, we'll keep going. We're heading out of the energy space and more into the kind of buildings, facilities management space, because I saw this story during the week, which made me kind of proud.
Yes.
UCC, University College Cork, my alma mater. I went to college in UCC in the kind of late 80s, early 90s.
Are you sure about that, Tom?
I'm very sure about that. did my undergrad there, graduated in 91, and then did a couple of years postgrad after that. And I recognize this place intimately. This is the quadrangle in UCC.
Yeah.
And the president's office is over here, and the finance office is over here, and the plant science department, where I did my degree, is back there, or used to be anyway. And the Boole Library is over there on the right. But anyway, that's irrelevant. The reason I'm flashing this up is because UCC, the University College Cork, was ranked 4th in the world in a list of the world's most sustainable universities, achieving the highest result in Ireland. So it's really impressive. I was delighted. I was delighted to see that. And some of it must have rubbed off me to say I've got an interest in this kind of stuff myself. They taught me well. It's a beautiful university.
It's gorgeous.
Yeah, fabulous campus.
Yeah.
And I had some great times there, and I learned some stuff too, apparently.
Evidently. Yes.
The other cool story, though, speaking of kind of green buildings and facilities management and that kind of stuff that I thought was cool, was this one coming out of Silicon Valley, Mountain View, in fact.
Yes.
And it's Microsoft submitting plans for a huge revamp of their campus in Mountain View. And you can see, or maybe you can't see, I'll blow it up a little bigger. The campus there, it's gone off screen. 1 second. There we go.
Yeah.
they're turning the campus into a very green space, and they're going to, put a lot of green roofs on a lot of the buildings. And of course, green roofs have huge advantages in terms of keeping buildings cool, in terms of stopping rainfall runoff, and in terms of increasing biodiversity. So the fact that they're doing this speaks very positively. At the moment, it's still in planning phase. It needs to be passed. It's being put forward for planning approval, but because it's such a sustainable idea and because they've done such a nice job on it, I don't see they'll have huge problems getting this through planning.
Not in the Bay Area. There's no way that they would. Considering the Apple bit, the new Apple building and things like that. There's a lot of precedent for a lot of green innovations in that area. But it's interesting because a lot of the stuff that's going to go actually, that's where it is. The cars will be stored in a new garage topped by a soccer field.
That's right.
Having a soccer field on top. That. Oh God. Can you imagine kicking the ball off the end of it and having to go down 4 flights of stairs to get your ball? Jesus.
They may consider putting a fence around it.
Yeah, I think so. Well, I remember my next door neighbor. My brother and I used to play tennis and play ball games all the time, and at least once a day I'd have to go in and retrieve a ball and knock on their front door and say, "Can I have my ball back, please?" And I remember many years ago, a couple of years ago, I think it was in my very late 20s, and my brother and I were playing something at a family barbecue, and I had to go in next door and rap my next door neighbours and basically sort of said, "I know I'm a little bit old, but can I have my ball back, please?"
Yeah.
I was in the late 20s, still asking that question. But that's pretty cool. And as you say, the advantages of having green gardens on top of your roofs and things like that. There, it helps with temperature regulation. It does
reduces rainwater runoff is a big thing as well.
Exactly. I remember working at BP in Sunbury, and they had passive aircon systems and things like that there, and they used they had fountains at the bottom, or water pools that actually that powered, or that they used in the passive air cooling systems or air conditioning systems. So when you get the rainwater runoff and you can have those passive aircon systems, very, very nice, very cool, and gorgeous to look at. Yeah.
Sticking with Microsoft, they made this announcement during the week, and I'm going to throw this ball into your court, Chris, because you claim to be the cloud architect. And Microsoft have announced their first technical preview of Azure Stack.
Yes.
Now, to my mind, and I'm not a cloud architect.
Yes.
So I'll throw in my 2 cents first, and you can then correct me. But to my mind, what I see in this is Microsoft rolling out a version of Azure similar to Cloud Stack or OpenStack, which is a kind of here's a cloud, take it home and play with it kind of thing, but it's built on Azure instead of OpenStack or Cloud Stack. So it's one you can take home and have fun with. Yeah.
It is, and this is actually pretty cool. I like this a lot, and I saw this and thought, wow, that's actually, I like that. Because OpenStack is the world trying to build a data center and cloud operating system, or operating framework that allows you to build, control, and manage your compute resources, whether they're on-premise or in the cloud. Okay, and that's great. But like everything that is run by committee, it's either a mad free-for-all or it's a horrific compromise. Okay, now we have Microsoft, or we haven't really had too many companies try to own this space. We had Eucalyptus,
yes,
which actually started out really well and then completely screwed themselves up by trying to do a commercial version and an open source version that wasn't actually based on the same code base, and actually split the community, and the open source community just went, screw you, we're going with OpenStack, and that caused all sorts. That pushed Eucalyptus off the map. Then we've got things like VMware, where you're paying a lot of license, but it's a good platform. So this is a great platform. And then you've got other things like Zen, which are just standalone hypervisors. Where I think this play is really, really interesting is the fact that Azure have done a lot of work. Microsoft have done a lot of work with Azure as a developers platform, and they have made a lot of ground in catching up with Amazon. Okay. Simply through their .NET and their JavaScript and libraries and things like that there, and open sourcing so much of their stuff. Now what you've got with this is the ability actually to seamlessly, or supposedly seamlessly, have your Azure landscape doing all your flexible stuff, your scale up, scale down, non-prod stuff, and then you can keep your data sensitive stuff in your data center, but have it all managed by the same APIs. Okay? And when you have that, then you can have this seamless command and control, and it's actually really interesting. So I'm thoroughly impressed by this, and it really, again, it comes back to this openness that Microsoft are actually showing.
It's weird, isn't it? I mean, this isn't your mother's or father's Microsoft.
No, it very definitely isn't. It very definitely isn't. But at the same time, this is where Microsoft owned the desktop in the 90s and the noughties, right? This is now Microsoft going after and owning the data center.
Yeah.
Okay, and you can't underestimate their ambition in this area. It's huge.
I get that, and while that's impressive, what are their chances of actually coming through? Because it's one thing to be ambitious; it's another thing to have something and be able to fulfill on that ambition.
Yeah, it's everybody that I've ever known that has used Azure has no real complaint from a compute point of view. The APIs may be a little bit rough and ready, and they're not quite as polished as the EC2 APIs, but I don't see, the thing about it is, I don't see Amazon offering the same capability internally into people's data centers. I hear the odd whisper here and there that there are certain things that possibly will happen, but I've never seen anything out in the wild, and certainly nothing that anybody's willing to go on record for, either in the bar or out of the bar. But certainly, this is Microsoft stealing a march on its competitors. So it is a massive march. But I'm looking forward to seeing it, and hopefully it's a bit more. Without knocking OpenStack, it is difficult. Everybody that I've ever spoken to who runs or has anything to do with OpenStack says it is tough. It is worth it, but it is flaky, and it takes it is tough to work with. If this makes it easier for people to work with, it's going to do well.
Interesting.
It will do well.
Okay, cool. The other cool news out of Microsoft this week was this story. And it's how Microsoft are rewriting the Microsoft Education Edition. We spoke about the Microsoft Education Edition last week. It's this new version of Minecraft, Minecraft Education Edition, that Microsoft are launching later this year.
Yeah.
And what they're doing, it's very similar to the standard Minecraft edition, except there's a couple of extra things in there for students and educators particularly. Yes. But what they're doing is they're rewriting it, and they're writing it in C++. And of course, the C++ edition will run, faster than the Java version, obviously.
Yes.
It's interesting. It's cool. I wonder, about people who have the standard edition and want to run the education edition, splitting it like that is bound to cause issues for people, no?
Yeah, massively. Yeah, well, the example that I gave before was the eucalyptus between a different code base for the commercial version versus the open source version, and it's when you how bad are the performance problems? I'm not a Minecraft user, but I don't really given the way that people run it and things like that there, I don't really see too many people jumping up and down about the performance of Minecraft itself. So what is the point in rewriting it?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe it's to make it kind of future proof or something. I don't know. My kids play Minecraft on a 2008 laptop, with 2 gigs of RAM in it. Now they can't do anything else with the laptop. If they want to play with their friends, they fire up a separate device, the iPad or something, to talk to their friends on Skype, because they couldn't run Skype and Minecraft on the same machine. It would just fall apart. But a 2008 8-year-old 2 gigabyte memory laptop can still run it.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know what the actual point is. I can't quite see any other point except for Microsoft, really, sticking their oar in to fully own Minecraft. They acquired it. They've done a lot with it and worked with the community, but I'm just wondering whether this is somebody within Microsoft doing a land grab or an empire build.
Mm.
It's just it feels like it. I don't see and Minecraft is one of those things. It's like World of Warcraft. It's like it has such a strong following.
Yeah, it's a big
that you really run the risk of pissing everybody off in a very bad way.
Yeah.
So
if it goes wrong, it would reflect very badly on Microsoft. If it goes well, then great. Fantastic.
But it needs to. One of the things that the big thing that the article takes is that the mods and the imports are not going to be compatible. If they can actually bring out a translation tool or a migration tool that'll actually take those mods and turn them around, or actually takes the bull by the horns and says, we have a translation tool, because I know that there are Minecraft sites that are specific for mods and things like that there. If it works with the community and says, we have a translation tool, we'll either give it to you for free and you can do the mods and you can have your different versions, or you send them to us. We'll do the updates, through our translation tool and fix anything and then make it work. But I don't know how likely they are to do that. But it would be. It seems mad that they wouldn't introduce a translation tool to make these mods work.
I think they, pretty much have to. I mean, I don't see how they do it otherwise. I don't think they can afford to, drop everyone. It just, that would piss too many people off.
It would do. It really, really would do. So, but yeah, hopefully that they, Microsoft is not necessarily a stupid company. I just hope that it's not a land grab or an empire build. If that usually causes all sorts of stupidity. If they're doing it for the right reason, then they'll come up with the right answer, and the community will help them. But if it's a land grab, somebody's going to put a foot wrong somewhere, and it's going to turn out very badly.
Yeah. We'll keep going, because there's this other story also related to Microsoft, although kind of more tangentially. It's this one. It's Microsoft owns Skype,
Yes.
Another one of their acquisitions. But there's this startup called Airwave, who've launched in public beta. And what it is it's a chat tool, but it's it's a video chat tool, which uses is it WRTC? No, it's what's the product? WebRTC, WRTC.
Yeah, WRTC, yes.
So it's that protocol, which is incredibly secure. It's unlike Skype. Skype is not as secure, and the Airwave received an A rating from SSL Labs.
Nice.
Which is pretty impressive, where by comparison Skype only gets a C. You can run it through a browser. You don't need any plugins because it's WRTC. It'll just run out of any modern browser. So again, unlike Skype, you don't need any extra software. You can just run it out of a browser. And you can just do it by sending a link to people. There's something similar built into Firefox. Firefox has something similar, but which again uses WRTC, but isn't as secure as Airwave. So it looks like a nice way to set up secure video chats between people.
Yeah. Part of the reason that part of the reason why it got a C is the way Skype handles its encryption, which was actually developed from it was forked from an idea that came from GCHQ. It's actually around the way keys are passed between the participants within the call. There's effectively an escrow in the middle of the process, and that escrow is actually, whilst that escrow itself may not be open to attack, the process itself lends itself to a man-in-the-middle attack, which is one of the reasons why Skype got such a low grade. You know, the certificates and stuff are at a high enough bit level to be useful, but it's hobbled by this escrow type scenario, which causes a problem, which is, you know, whereas this WRTC and these types of things don't suffer from that because the keys are exchanged directly between the participants or the certificates. So, but you know, one of the things I like about this is it's a quick, lightweight way to do to communicate. It's a secure, lightweight way. So, for example, you know, we do this over Google Hangouts.
Yeah. Simply
because one of the reasons is it's a lightweight, it's a reliable tool that actually does this extremely well. So we use Hangouts a lot, so we do internally. So we do because it's a lightweight, easy. You know, I just send an invite to somebody either to their Google Plus ID or to their Gmail or whatever. You know, we can start it like that. So yeah, I like this stuff. Being able to do video conferencing on the fly very quickly is just great.
It's fantastic. It is. It's fantastic.
So
it is, and I mean, the next story, slightly different topic, but sticking with privacy, talks about Google making developers work easier, so that developers can make secure sites more easily.
Yes.
And basically, what it is they've built this panel, and you can see it on the left-hand side appearing here in Chrome, which help developers who want to develop with HTTPS.
Yeah.
And what it does is it highlights all the connections on any particular page, and you know, the green little dot beside them shows that the connections are HTTPS, and if there's any connections on a page which are not secure, they'll obviously be flagged there quickly. And you know, often pages can have, you know, tens and even up to hundreds of different connections to different sites. So depending on what's on the page, you're not always sure whether some of those connections are
not just what's on the page. It's not just it's not just what you can see on the page. You know, whenever you turn on things like, you know, some of the Chrome add-ons like Ad Blocker or Ghostly, the phenomenal amount of data that goes from either on your page or to you bring the page up. The amount of data that's actually in front of you and then behind you is phenomenal. You know, you may see a lot of links on the page, but there's a lot more being sent to various parties.
Yeah.
So there is, you know, there's data about you, about the browser, about where you are, about, you know, what else you're looking at, and all those things need to be on secure connections to stop leakage. So it does, and you can see it much more in Internet Explorer than you can in Chrome or in Firefox, because when you have safe browsing or secure mode turned on in your Internet Explorer, and you get all the pop-ups going, you know, do you want to add this to your safe zone and things like that there? It's really, really annoying. But what that's, and you don't see half the things. You're going, why am I getting that? Because it's not on the page. It's because it's in the code that sits behind the page, sending data about you. So yes, things like this are just, you know, phenomenal, because then developers may be getting instructions to link to certain things and be unhappy about the fact they're not HTTPS. This actually gives them the ability to go back to those people or to say, you're not running a secure site. I can't, you know, this is the report that says you're actually really bad at your stuff and you better clean up your act. You know, and it'll actually give them this ability to say, you know, because this also links to the Google project about, you know, malicious websites and questionable websites.
Yeah.
And it enables these developers to go back and actually be responsible. You know, they don't have, you know, if they're developing like this, it means that that the information is going to be presented in front of them to say, that's not a good site, or you're doing this wrong. And it means they can't hide.
Yeah.
Can't hide behind, well, I didn't know. Well, now the tool's telling you.
And even going beyond that, Google have also announced this week that they're going to flag sites that are unencrypted.
Yeah.
So any site that you go to in Chrome, fair enough, will show up with a little red X in the side and in the address bar, just to highlight the fact that the site itself is not, and you can see it there in the image, the little red X there, that it's not a HTTPS site.
Well, we've had that for ages, have we not?
No. Well, yes and no. So what it is right now is if you go to a site in Chrome, it shows up in green to show that it is HTTPS.
Yes.
The red thing doesn't show up unless you customize Chrome to have it do so. And you can do that. That's straightforward. There's actually instructions in that article where you can go to the flags, the Chrome :flags page, and scroll down to the make secure and turn on the make secure. And when you do that, then yes, this functionality is already available. But that's not by default. What they're going to do is in a future version of Chrome, it will be default in Chrome that when you go to a site, it will then flag it as secure, or sorry, as insecure if HTTPS isn't turned on. And of course, it's important for HTTPS to be turned on a site.
It is, yeah.
To stop man-in-the-middle injections and to make sure that you're not being phished, and you know all the kinds of things that you want to avoid. You know, it's not just about having a secure connection to a site. It's actually being secure that you are browsing the site you think you're browsing. You know, a lot of these phishing attacks will take you to sites similar but not the same as the one you think you're going to, and this should stop that kind of thing from happening as well.
Yeah, no, completely.
Sticking with security for one last story, but kind of getting more into the hardware side of things.
Yeah.
We spoke a couple of weeks ago and several times about the Let's Encrypt free SSL certs.
Yeah.
They're an awesome idea.
Totally.
And the fact that you can get a free SSL cert, really, really cool. But what's even better is now that they're using that on the hardware side of things.
Yeah.
So
with the Let's Encrypt stuff, I think we're moving our Slack bots to the SSL certificate or SSL based connections rather than the webhooks, the API hooks.
Yeah.
We have requested a couple of Let's Encrypt SSL certificates because they're free.
Yeah.
And we're using them to encrypt our traffic for our Slack bots. So we have a web server in the office that runs the webhooks, and we're going to use the Let's Encrypt stuff to do that.
Very nice.
Yeah, moving into hardware is phenomenal.
It is. I mean, what you're doing is great, and why wouldn't you?
Mm.
You know, seeing as they're free, as you say, and you know, it's a nice trial run as well. It gives you a bit of practice and
Yeah.
rolling things out, because it's not very straightforward to do it.
No, no.
But
Why the developers are doing it and I'm not.
there you go. Hand off.
Exactly. Dude, play to your strengths. I like to call it playing to your strengths.
This company, Synology or Synology, I'm not sure how we're pronouncing it.
Synology, yeah.
Yeah, they're doing it for NAS boxes, you know,
Yeah.
for NAS devices, which is really cool. So, you know, whether they're you know, they're for storage, obviously. So, you know, getting your NAS boxes using SSL, it's hugely important as well, and it's possibly even underappreciated. So,
well, this is the interesting thing. So Synology do some of the most amazing, as you say, NAS boxes. But you know, the NAS boxes that they deliver are they come with little apps and things like that there that actually, you know, there's no. For me, actually, Synology is about exposing your storage globally to yourself wherever you are in the world, right? So if you want to stream, if you want to, if I have a Synology box underneath my desk and I'm a tech head in Las Vegas, I can stream anything I want off my box, right? There is no point in having a Synology box unless it's overkill unless you want to view your stuff away from home. But they have been like any platform like this that is out on the internet and secured by normal users, they have come on, they have had challenges, and this ability to use SSL and things like that there and have, you know, proper certificates is just phenomenal. It makes life so much easier. So it does, and it means that they can could be, you know, a market leader in doing this stuff.
Yeah, because there are a few people who do that kind of thing.
Mm.
You know, they're far from the only ones who do it. But having this built in at a hardware level,
yeah,
and you know, it's a competitive differentiator, but one that's not going to last a long time, given that the Let's Encrypt stuff is free. You know, you can see everyone jumping on board and doing something similar in a very short space of time, which is because it means everyone will be doing it, and all you know, all the traffic will be secure.
Exactly. It is a differentiator for now, but it's you know, it is going to be default. It has to be. It is going to be default, and you know, that's you know, be the first person.
Moving on from there, we see that Google has moved its Chrome for iOS to Apple's Webview. And you can see there, they say that it's going to reduce crashes. And I mean, this is Google's numbers. Google saying that it reduces crashes by 70%, as well as massively speeding up Chrome. It's a short story. There's not much more to say beyond that, except that, you know, I typically, just because it's easier, and I'm sure I'm not alone, I typically use Safari on the iOS devices. I use Chrome from time to time, not that often. But now that I know, you know, that it is faster, not necessarily faster than Safari, but it is faster than it was, and it's less likely to crash than it was. I can see myself having more reason to use it than I would have had in the past.
Yeah. No, it's. Oh, excuse me. Sorry.
Okay.
Well, we had the. I find this one interesting, considering that Safari had a crash bug. This was it this week or?
Yeah.
So at the moment, I think it's a timely introduction.
That's the weird thing. Safari had that bug happen both on the desktop and on the mobile devices. And for me, I experienced it. It happened to me. And it only happened to me on the desktop. It didn't happen to me on the mobile.
Oh.
So when I went in on the desktop, I mean, I read the report about it, and it showed how to stop it happening.
Yeah.
2 seconds, go into the preferences, unclick a switch, and restart the browser, and suddenly all the crashes go away. So I did. The crashes went away. Bang, that was it. It didn't happen at all on my mobile device at all.
Yeah.
So I just thought that was weird. I'm not sure why or what was going on, but anyway. I know some people had it happen on because someone posted a thing on Facebook, a guy I know, saying he had it happen him on his desktop as well. So, but it's weird, yeah, it is, and curious timing.
Absolutely, absolutely. You may have thought that Google embedded somebody in the Safari team just before.
Yeah, it was a funny coincidence. It was, and I'm sure that's all it was.
But all good fun, all good fun.
Indeed. And so I thought this one was cool. This is a story coming out of the Open Compute project.
Yes.
And again, Open Compute project, something we've talked about before. This is Open Hardware. And it's an organization that was set up initially by Facebook after they were Greenpeaced, where they decided to open source the hardware for their data centers. And I mean, they did a superb job of doing this. They didn't just open source the designs of all the devices in their data centers. They also open sourced their supplier list. So they put in the names and addresses of all the suppliers of all the parts in their data centers, so that you had not just the blueprints of their data centers, but you also had a list of suppliers. So, you know, you could literally just pick up the phone and build a Facebook data center.
Yeah, exactly.
And they got a lot of partners in doing it as well. And now, as a consequence, people are using what are called ODMs, you know, design manufacturers, basically, to,
Yes.
you know, as opposed to OEMs,
Exactly.
to you know, get cheaper equipment for data centers. And the one area of the data center that hadn't been tackled up until now, well, actually, there's two areas if I'm more honest about it, but the one big area which hadn't been tackled up until now was networking.
Yeah.
By the likes of Open Compute, and now we're starting to see the networking being tackled as well. So we've had the servers, now we have the networking, and we're starting to see that the likes of the telcos joining in. And of course, networking is a huge issue for telcos, and the telcos are joining in Open Compute and starting to try and get cheaper networking from the likes of open networking equipment. The other thing, I said two parts of data centers, and of course the other part which hasn't seriously been tackled by Open Compute yet is the cooling infrastructure, but I'm sure we'll get there as well. The likes of the Johnson's Controls and people like that who build the massive air handling units, and that has yet to be open sourced. But you know, I'm sure that's next on the hit list.
Yeah, the interesting, a lot of this is to do with the maturity of software-defined networking. So that is, and how that's actually developed now.
Yeah.
I remember a talk by John Willis, who's one of the DevOps type of gurus. He was talking about SDN, software-defined networking. It must have been about 18 months ago, and you know, a lot of people were talking about SDN, but you know, it just didn't happen, and that was or it wasn't easy. You know, these guys are doing infrastructure as code, and software-defined networking was sort of the last bastion that was difficult, and things like the Open Compute project really helped drive that forward.
Yeah.
And then whenever you look at the originating companies like Amazon and Google and Facebook, who actually, as you said, developed their own networking equipment. I remember a story, it must have been about 3 years ago, where a Google switch was delivered to the wrong place. And the thing about it is that the place it was delivered to was actually an IT company, and they were poring over this Google switch. And they returned it to Google simply for legal reasons, obviously, but not before somebody had a good look at it and drooled over it and things like that there. And
got out the camera.
phenomenal piece of equipment. I hadn't seen anything quite. They were designed because Google is such a tight requirement. It was built for a specific purpose, and it was phenomenal. But Cisco, Juniper, Nokia, there's a reckoning coming for those companies that don't embrace this this software defined future and make life easier.
Yeah. No, completely. We're shifting track now because I was running this Hangout. I was running it in parallel on Periscope as well.
Yes.
And the number of people joining fell off, so I dropped out of Periscope there a few minutes ago. So I'm no longer holding the phone in my hand.
Yes.
But I think Periscope could well be in trouble because Facebook made this announcement yesterday, I think it was. Yesterday, that they are going to roll out live video on Facebook, which is basically the same thing that Periscope had been doing. And when you do a live video using Facebook, it'll broadcast to your Facebook followers. Now that's so far so good, because Periscope does that as well, except to your Twitter followers. Periscope having been bought by Twitter.
Yeah.
The difference is, of course, that there are 300 million there are 300 million Twitter users. There are 1,600 million or 1.6 billion Facebook users.
I know.
And so the live video that you do using Facebook's live video, when it comes live, they've made it live in the US yesterday. They haven't made it live in the rest of the world yet, but they'll roll it out slowly across the rest of the world. And when they do, we'll be able to use Facebook to automatically start a live video similar to Periscope, broadcast it to our Facebook followers, unlike Periscope, and it will automatically be saved into our feed in Facebook. So for people who aren't live when it happens, they'll be able to see it in your feed subsequently and go back and view the video. You can do that with Periscope as well, but what you have to do is you have to save it off and then upload it to Facebook. So it takes a couple of steps out of the process. So look, Twitter's dying. Unless they get some major surgery done, and I don't know, have they shifted a load of their executives, or
four
or five of the major ones
went on Sunday.
Yeah, so I don't know, do they jump or were they pushed? I'm not quite sure.
Difficult.
Yeah,
you never really know, but some of them were long. Like Dorsey's trying to turn the business around and change it massively. At least 3 of those 4 people were very, very early Twitter investors and board members. So maybe they just weren't getting with the program and away.
Maybe so. So. Whether or which, it's in deep trouble now for quite a while, whereas Facebook is in the ascendancy.
I know.
So and that brings me nicely into the next story, which is...
Can I just make one point about this?
Sure.
There's one of the things that I think is really, really cool. Can you imagine how tight and how lean the Facebook code base actually is to be able to support running live video for, like, even if you said 1.6 billion users, even at a 1% concurrency rate, that is still tens of thousands of users at any one time.
Yeah.
That infrastructure that supports that and the code base that runs it is an engineering achievement that dwarfs so many things. That is phenomenal. That is an engineering masterpiece and masterclass in every sense of the word.
And what's that going to do to citizen reporting when you have 1.6 billion people who can whip out a phone and upload to Facebook live video?
You take citizen reporting. Where I went to with this was, basically between the hours of 5 o'clock, sort of in New Zealand, right the way through the let's say 6 o'clock on Sunday. So there is a gap of probably around 80 hours of drunken antics around the world, live streamed on Facebook. Seriously.
There'll be a lot of that. A lot of that.
And we'll not even go anywhere near things that are done in private.
No, please not.
yeah, it's a family show. But yeah, that is phenomenal. I saw that announcement and my jaw just dropped as to what that means.
Yeah.
In terms of engineering skill and amazement. We talk about Google and AI and all that sort of stuff. This is something that runs live, and I just can't say enough good things about it. I am stunned by that and just amazed.
Imagine the size of the data pipes going through to.
I know. Or even look at the compression algorithms that are actually needed to move that amount of video from a mobile device over mobile networks. Like Facebook didn't just launch this in isolation. Telcos had to be consulted about this to make sure the traffic isn't being throttled or isn't being blocked. So they had to sign up to this stuff as well. Organizationally amazing, engineering-wise phenomenal. Enough said. Move on.
Yeah. And I mean, the other, I mentioned that Twitter were in trouble and Facebook less so. They announced their Q4 numbers yesterday, I think it was, or the day before, the 27th. There you go, 2 days ago. And the numbers are just unbelievable. Revenue by user geography is the first chart here. And let me just blow that up a little. You can see there that the leftmost one is Q4 13, then 14, 15, and Q4 15 is the last one. The bottom is US and Canada, then Europe, then Asia Pacific, and then the rest of the world. Look at the numbers. They go from, in Q4 13, the numbers for the US are 1,206 million revenue by user geography, going up to 2,951 in Q4 15. You can see it's booming. It's absolutely booming. The revenue is going through the roof. And then it's not just the revenue, but it's the number of monthly active users. And the monthly active users, again, you can see it's growing hugely, growing more in Asia Pacific, I think by percentages, and the rest of the world than it is in the US and Europe, which is interesting as well. And then the mobile monthly active users, not broken out by geography, but you can see that's enormous as well. And if you look, the number of mobile monthly active users is 1.4 billion. And the number of monthly active users is 1.6 billion, 1.591. So the vast majority of the monthly active users are mobile active users.
Yeah.
So basically, Facebook is booming. It's making a crap load of money, and most of its users are accessing it from mobile.
Yeah. That is... whenever you look at these sorts of numbers and things like that, it boggles belief. You can't really get your head around it. And the interesting thing is that although the graph, the scale of the graph is in millions, or the individual numbers are in thousands, which makes it slightly easier to put into the
context. Yeah.
Put it in context, yeah. But we talk about how are Facebook, the advertising revenue and things like that. There, how are they going to monetize the mobile platform, stuff like that? There, you see things like this, and you think, I think they're all right. I think they're managing. I don't see there being a massive issue. So from that point of view, it is stunning. And your own assertion that Facebook is on the ascendancy and that Twitter is dying. There are so many things I love about Facebook, and then there's so many things that I hate about Facebook, and it's this love-hate relationship I have about what the data that they have, and it's the same love-hate relationship I have with Google. So it is around structured data, unstructured data, indirect use of data, and things like that there. And it's I do find myself using Facebook more and more, and Facebook Messenger, and that type of stuff, and it does trouble me in many regards, because at the end of the day, Facebook is a company that's that I don't pay for the usage of the platform, which means I don't pay for the product, which means I am the product. So
completely
causes me issues.
I much prefer, in a lot of senses, I much prefer the philosophy traditionally that Twitter had.
Yes.
But the product that Facebook have come up with is so much better. And I go to Twitter now a couple of times a day, where I used to live on Twitter.
Yes.
And and I said this to the likes of Andy Piper 15 months ago. I said, look, be careful. The utility of Twitter is dropping off. It's dropping off a cliff. I mean, it's becoming less and less useful. And he's only one guy in Twitter. He's not going to be able to fix it himself. But I was highlighting it to him back then that Twitter was in trouble, and it still is, and it's even more trouble now.
But is it because, and this is the interesting thing, is it because they closed the API? I did notice that they a lot of the engagement and things like that there really did start to drop off whenever they started putting restrictions on the API and doing silly things like that. It sort of closed the ecosystem a lot more.
They lost a lot of the goodwill when they did that.
Yeah,
I think that was a big part of it. They had a lot of goodwill up until then, and then they lost a lot of the goodwill. And then Facebook started becoming more useful, better as a platform for conversation. And Twitter wasn't able to keep up. And at the time, 3 years ago, let's say, I would have said they were pretty much neck and neck. And 4 years ago, I would have said that Twitter was the better platform.
Yeah, no, I would, yes.
But now, not a chance. Now I surface most of my stories on Facebook, and I have my conversations there. And Twitter, I drop in and out of it from time to time, but I used to live in it.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Anyway, we'll power on, because Facebook as well had another announcement this week, which I thought was interesting and timely, and it was around AI. And basically, they said, look, there's this board game called Go, which is really, really cool and really, really simple, but at the same time, really, really complex.
It's massively complex. Is that the story that has the video?
It's 10. So the number of possible outcomes for a game of Go is greater than the number of atoms in the universe.
Exactly. Exactly.
10 to the 700 possible outcomes, whereas a game of chess is 10 to the 60 or 10 to the 70. So there's an order of magnitude.
There are only something like 20 possible moves for every individual move. In our maximum of 20 options for a particular move in chess, it is up to our 20,000 for a game of Go at any one point, and that's it. There's a great video to this about that explains what Go is, and you should watch it. It's such a complex game.
It is, and at the same time, it's very simple.
Yes,
it's very simple to play, but to strategize and do well at is very, very complicated. It's very difficult.
It's so complicated. It's so complicated that it's generally played by instinct. Yeah. And that's the challenge, because as you say, there are so many permutations. You actually can't you can't strategize too far in the future, whereas with chess you can. Exactly. You can be thinking 6 or 7 moves ahead. Like most chess players are amateurs are 1 or 2 moves ahead. Your grandmasters are 7, 8 moves ahead in terms of being able to calculate and keep their head on the ball.
And it's mapping ahead. It's mapping possible options, and in this case do that, in the other case do the other, that kind of thing, exactly. So what's interesting is Facebook have been working on an artificial intelligence system to try and be able to beat human players in this board game Go. And they announced this on the 27th. Well, they probably announced it on the 26th, and was reported by the BBC in this story on the 27th. So they're close to being able to beat human players using artificial intelligence in the game Go. And then, boom.
Yeah.
Same day, Google come out and say, yeah, well, you know, that's all nice and all, but actually we've beaten the European Grandmaster in Go with our artificial intelligence, which we call AlphaGo, and we're taking on the World Master in April. So this reported on the 27th blew everyone away, because despite Facebook's assertion that they were close, people actually thought, you know, we're a long way away from beating humans and using AI in this game because it's such a complex game. And then suddenly Google goes, we did it.
Yeah, I know. It oh man, you know, it's one of those things you just sit and think, that's just phenomenal. You know, and it is scary from the point of view that it is such a it's such a flexible game. You know, it shows that, you know, we looked at Watson and the interpretation and interpolation engine that contextualized questions, the natural language processing to find answers, you know, across the entire of human or English vocabulary, and that was amazing. And now you have this where the number of permutations is greater than the number of atoms in the actual universe. That is just,
it's insane, isn't it?
So it's just absolutely amazing. The link that I'm looking at is actually, it's the Google one. So if you just Google BBC, you Google search BBC, Google, and Go, there's the video on there of what is Go, and it explains and it gives you that statistic. And you know, you look at the zeros, and it's like a little PowerPoint, and it's like advancing on one slide, and another 3, another 3, another 3, another 3, another 3, and you think, it's going to stop. You know, so it's like looking at a Googleplex, which is a Google raised to the power of a Google, and you can't rank that on any atoms in the universe, which just blows your mind as well. But no. So yeah, the singularity is on its way. Yeah,
we're getting there. We're getting there.
Exactly. I will bow down before our robot overlords quite easily. If they pay me well enough, it's okay.
The last thing I thought was interesting was a couple of announcements that came out of the kind of transportation area. And there was a couple there interesting ones. Waze, if you're familiar with it, is a cool little GPS app which socializes your GPS. Basically, it knows where you're going, it knows what speed you're going, and anyone who's around you, it will be able to say to them, look, Tom's on this particular road and he's going at 2 miles an hour. Maybe there might be a problem there with the traffic. So if you were thinking of going that route, maybe you might want to go this other road instead, because people on that road are going much faster. So it's a great way of surfacing and avoiding issues on the roads. And you know, you can add in things like if you come across a traffic accident or a police stop or something like that, you can just tap the screen and say that there's something there as well, so you can help people out. And they gamify it as well by giving you points and things like that as you drive along. But now what they've done as well is they've made partnerships with other companies. They've got this Waze Transport SDK that they're after launching, and it lets other companies like Lyft, who are doing a lot of driving, obviously. Lyft are another Uber type company, and there's an emergency dispatch responder as well, Genesis Group and Just Park Limited of the UK. And all these drivers will now automatically be using Waze. And because you'll have more people using Waze and putting their data into Waze, the information in Waze will suddenly get that much better again. It's any of these kind of things has a network effect. The more people that use it, the more useful it becomes. And now they're after adding in tens of thousands of more drivers just because they've got Lyft and the Genesis Group and Just Parking in there as well. You'll have literally tens of thousands more drivers adding more information in real time into the system, so everyone will be able to see what's going on around them.
Yeah. Well, when I first read this, because obviously Waze was acquired by Google, and the thing that I sit and think is, God, you know, they're taking my data and they're selling it to people. And whenever you actually read the story, the partnerships that they've had are actually useful partnerships, not just for us as consumers of the Waze service, but also those people themselves. You know, you look at Lyft. You know, Lyft is able to, maximize the time, or minimize the time that people are actually in the cabs, which is better for the consumer, but it also means that they can not travel on heavily congested routes. And then on top of that, there you have the emergency dispatch company. You're actually able to route ambulances past, you know, heavily congested areas and things like that there, which means that you're actually spending less time in the ambulance and getting to your emergency room or your A&E faster and getting the medical treatment. And then Just Park as well, where again, you know, they if they have lots of Waze users, and you know, they know that a car park that has, you know, 1,000 car parking spaces, and even if you take it that 1% of those people are Waze users, and there's you know that there's 40 cars in the car park, then, or there's 4 cars in the car park, you can assume that there's 200 spaces left.
Yeah.
And that in itself, it all becomes really, really useful. It's not, you know, this tranche is not about them selling your data to people. It's about actually making the service more useful.
Yeah.
And that makes sense.
Yeah.
That does. So no, I like it. I like it a lot.
Likewise.
Yeah.
Two final stories, and they're both related. They're both around transportation still. The first one talks about electric cars using bus lanes in UK cities, and it is a little more than the headline. The headline would have you believe that that's the only thing in the story. But basically, it talks about how the Department of Transport in the UK have a £40 million pot of money to share out among 8 towns and cities. The cities are listed there. And they've got funding for not just the using them in bus lanes, but also other things, other incentives like that. London, of course, which has the worst air pollution in the UK, it's horrific. The quality of air is abysmal. Gets most of the money. It gets 13 million. But the other towns are there as well. So there's a number of initiatives there to try and help increase the amount of electric cars being used. One negative in the story is that the UK government is going to decrease the amount of grants being given to electric car buyers. The maximum currently is £5,000, and that's going to drop in April of this year down to between £2,500 and £4,500, depending on which model people choose to buy. The other story from the transportation field was this one, where driverless bus trials are taking place in the Netherlands on public roads. There was a similar story out at the UK as well, where the UK are doing something similar around London, again using pods like this.
Yes,
so there's 2
Heathrow pods.
The Heathrow ones, but they're being used not around Heathrow, but around. It's not around Greenwich, is it? It's somewhere.
It is Greenwich, yeah.
Is it? Yeah. So both the Netherlands and London are trialing pods like this, driverless pods that travel at the moment at around 5 miles an hour. So that's about 8 kilometers an hour, a little faster than walking speed, and they will. They'll go initially on routes of about 200 meters, and they'll gradually bring that up from 200 meters to several kilometers. But they'll be on, the interesting thing is they'll be on public roads, they'll be completely driverless, and they'll be taking about 6 passengers, and they'll be getting a lot of data from that on, the initial thing will be, are people happy to get into these things and confident? And then from then on out, how do these things respond to being in real world situations on public roads with no drivers? And how do they respond to traffic around them? And how do the passengers respond to being in them?
Yeah, well, you know what, I do come back to this thing. They're definitely not the sexiest vehicles you ever want to, you know, both the pods and these ones are just horrific. But then, you know, I'm okay with that. The problem is the you know, the manual drivers, not the not. I have no problems with the autonomous vehicles. It's just everybody around me when you're in one.
If these are being driven by AI, I wonder if they have a Go board in there, and you could play against the machine as it's driving down the road.
I wouldn't want to distract it. Yeah, I'd rather keep its processing power and keeping me safe as opposed to keeping me entertained. No, look, I'm stunned. I read the driverless car one today and thought, seriously, like they're talking about July, August for having them on the streets. I'm thinking, you know, we talk regularly about autonomous vehicles on the west coast of the US.
Yeah,
this is London. This is one of the biggest cities on the planet, one of the busiest cities on the planet. It constantly gets berated for its treatment of cyclists. It is such a dangerous city on the roads, and we're going to put driverless cars on the road in July or August. And I thought, whoa,
yeah,
that's way sooner than I had anticipated.
It's mad, isn't it?
That is insane. Now, what we can't forget, and I'm going to bring the cynic of me out, is the fact that
had to happen.
There is a London mayoral election coming up in the not too distant future, and I cannot, you know, Ken Livingstone's legacy lives in the Oyster system, which is phenomenal.
Yeah,
you know, Boris Johnson's legacy,
the Boris bike.
the Boris bike. You know, we have Goldsmith, is it? Zach Goldsmith is the Conservative front runner. You know, this is his thing.
Yeah.
You know, let's not kid ourselves. Part of this is political, and that's why London gets more of the money and all the rest of it. And you know, I saw during the week there about TfL taking on the running of some of the overland or the overground rail routes and things like that. There, you know, transportation to Londoners is a massive thing,
sure,
and this is part of it. But is that a good thing? Is it a bad thing? At the end of the day, they're electric vehicles. They're autonomous. They'll take traffic off the streets. I'd say it's a net win.
Oh, completely.
Yeah, I'm not going to ditch it, but I'm not going to shy away from where I think the actual idea is coming from, which is politics and getting a Conservative mayor back in London.
Oh, you cynic.
I know. I'm going to call bullshit. Excuse my language.
Shocked I am.
I know.
All right, that's it for this week. Thanks everyone for your time and your interest, and we shall be back same time next week with more good news on the technology front and saving the planet. Thanks everyone for your time and interest, and we'll see you then.
Thanks very much. Cheers, guys.